I wanted to talk about tuning, especially 997, 992 turbos, 996s, basically all the turbo platforms that require a lot of boost. You have power. The issue that we're seeing a lot is we have a 997 that I'm getting ready to show is it just came from a shop, and unfortunately they did not tune the car properly. The car doesn't idle good, and when you actually read a data stream on the vehicle and drive the vehicle in data log, it shows knock in certain areas it's not supposed to be there. Smooth running is not nice on the car. When you have tuning that hasn't been properly calibrated, been kind of rushed through, and it could be either the tuner doesn't have a lot of experience or possibly just, a rush job or maybe off-the-shelf tune. Although the off-the-shelf tunes have their place, they still should be perfected in data log. We actually use full data logging capabilities, and if we need to do a dyno like we did on this one with 3076 turbochargers, we'll use a dyno. Data logging is, of course, a very nice way to determine your mid to low range and to actually get it dialed in where it actually drives perfectly in traffic on regular commutes. Of course, if you're doing track events and you don't really, really care about it and you want to just dial it in wide open throttle. This one here is here for upgrades as well, so we have to do cooling fittings. It came in with a problem where there was another shop that worked on it previously at some point. There was a bunch of other issues with it, but we solved most of them. Now we have to pull the engine out and actually upgrade the cooling fittings, because if you don't upgrade the cooling fittings that are leaking like this one here, you push power, they'll pop, you're gonna overheat your car. What a waste of money. Don't ever do that. And if somebody offers to do like a tune on your car and things are not upgraded, like injectors, if you're going to E85, big power, big turbos, wasting your time. You're not going to be able to push that much power out of stock fuel. Not enough anything. I mean, you can still do 500 plus wheel on these. Anything else just runs out of breath. Same thing goes for pretty much turbos. Turbos are just going to be limited. So let's look inside of this car and just kind of see. Oh no, this one's got no sport chrono. 2 this year that came in back to back with no sport chronos. Kind of rare not to have a sport chrono. I know it's sad, no sport chrono. I'm probably saying, man, what a waste, but rest assured, don't be worried. We can fix that problem with 2 different maps. So you don't even need the sport chrono. The only thing's gonna be missing is the clocks. If you want a clock, we'll install your clock. If you're buying one of these and you're looking for this car, make sure the external components have been done and make sure your timing is good. There's no high deviations. That means the chains are stretched because that car's been mechanically over-revved like crazy. I have no idea how much problems we see with mechanical over-revved cars that have high numbers, that have timing chain stretch. You see a lot of these keyboard warriors that are arguing between over-revs and mechanical over-revs, what's acceptable, what's not. The easy way to tell, see if your timing's deviated too high. Your timing chains are going to be stretched. So if you're over-revving the car mechanically to its limit, the car can't stop that. Bouncing off the rev limiter is not mechanically over-revving. So what will happen is you're going to damage your chains. Well, we can fix that before the engine grenades. That usually happens where somebody misshifts, let's say going 6,800 RPMs and third gear, and then accidentally pops it in second gear. That's called a mechanical over-rev. The engine cannot stop itself, so that speed and that jolt, it'll bring it right around over 7,500 RPM. This cars can't handle that. It just floats, the valves float, so it's going to damage the engine. Eventually, it may not damage it right away, but over time, you'll have damage. So we check that. Bad mechanical over-rev, and I've seen some bad ones that the engines were perfectly fine after like 200 hours are still functioning. That doesn't mean there's still not collateral damage somewhere one day it's going to happen, because these are some robust engines. I mean, you can't destroy these cars. I mean, we've never had one blow up, except a car that was tuned by somebody that pushed over 1,300 horsepower that we're building now. They use just the wrong size studs and just wrong everything. So you're not excited when you have to fix somebody else's stuff. That's the worst thing you can do, but that's it. When you have a car like this, upgrade those components or just don't do any tunes on it. Upgrade everything. Get changed out with some of these guys that tune these cars. Well, off-the-shelf tune loading. They're not really tuning Some really awesome tuners out there, you know, Protomotive, they're one of our partners. Cam slip is another real big issue that we see here. Camshaft has a hub that's pressed in from the factory, and there's oil galleys in it, little oil passages, the RPM, and what happens is housing on the cap will actually rotate. It's called cam slip. Here's the oil passage holes here. This is where the variable adjuster attaches. So this hub that's on here, this is called hub spin, is normally when you see that described. This will actually spin and cause the oil passage holes. It restricts oil flow. We can tell if the cam has slipped and the hub has turned by just actually doing a oscilloscope test. So that's a big problem that we see. About 50% of the time, the cam is not following closely, so we test that. I mean, there's a couple videos on the bottom. It's under 017 code. It's always best to go through the whole vehicle before you start boosting it and getting some power out of it. I've owned several of these and still do. They're amazing machines. You could really drive them daily. They're reliable. They're much more expensive now. The price really skyrocketed on the 997s. It really went up right now. We actually have a 997 Turbo Tiptronic that's for sale. 2009. It's a Mesger engine. It's a convertible, black one. I'll make a video about it. Decided to finally list it. But it's amazing what you can do with these cars. Even on pump gas with bigger turbos, it's amazing what these cars produce as they are. And for a lot of folks, it's enough, but for some, like the one in the corner, the one right here on the rack, it's never enough. It just all depends on what you want. As far as fueling on these, pump gas, you know, with big injectors, you can make, you know, right around 600. The problem is torque is what you gotta limit down, because if you make too much torque and bend the rods and pull the head studs, it gets really expensive. E85 is the best solution. You can really reach 700 wheel, no problem, very clean. We haven't had one have any problems with E85 fuel because E85 burns so slow. So it's like having 130 octane somewhere in comparison versus, you know, obviously 93. So the knock and detonation is going to be huge with the 93, especially places like Florida, North Carolina, where it gets really hot. A lot of different variations, a lot of different options that we can run. Some guys just want a nice maxed out tune on their stock turbos, which we don't max them to 100. You know, we give them some leeway. Well, we can do that. You know, you just, as long as the mechanical stuff is sound and the spark plugs and everything are replaced and gapped, the coils, cooling fittings, water pump, thermostat, hoses, turbo lines, coolers. There's so many components that need to be done. As long as everything's upgraded to push more power, those components will get hotter, and then you're gonna have a problem. The only way to get to it, engine out, we fix that. So that way, that doesn't happen. So it's so important to do maintenance on these cars. There's a lot of heat generated in these cabins. It's tight in there, so the little fan can only do so much, and then the front radiators can only cool so much, and if you're sitting in traffic, yeah, you'll overheat this thing. So you have a 997, any of these vehicles, turbo cars, even the 4S turbo, the 992, any of those GTSs, we can tune all those cars. Hope this video is helpful for some of you that are trying to decide what you're gonna do, and we'll see you next time.